Welcome to Card Central 365 on STL Sports Central. All content is provided by DraftKings. The crown is yours. I'm Stefan Caray. He's Joe Roderick. Good to be back on the show with some very, very big news here on a fantastic Tuesday morning. This is a point of, in some ways, contention for Cardinals fans. They've been asking for this to happen. Looks like both parties have come to an agreement. And Joe, I will let you announce the news to the world.
Yeah, great day for Brendan to be having a baby, and Stefan, for you to be making your return here to STL Sports Central. The Arizona Diamondbacks are acquiring 8-time All-Star third baseman Nolan Arenado from the Cardinals as he waived his no-trade clause. The Cardinals are getting back. I think I saw reports of a player named Jack Martinez back for that. And it looks like the Diamondbacks are paying $5 million this year, $6 million next year of the remaining $42 million. So the Cardinals also sending $31 million back to Arizona to rid themselves of the remainder of the Nolan Arenado. So the trade that we've been waiting for now, this is the second offseason of sitting here and waiting for this trade to be made, and for that kind of hole, or that, I guess, that log jam at third base to finally open back up. It finally happened, and this was needed. We knew it was coming, and the Cardinals and Chaim Bloom, I think, had to work really, really hard to find a good trade partner to make this happen.
A lot more roster flexibility now that you don't have Arenado at the hot corner. Of course, that defense will be missed. And we know that he certainly could turn a corner offensively. But in this new era of Cardinals baseball, it makes sense to move on from him. I want to look at this from not only the Cardinals' perspective, but from the Diamondbacks' perspective. The Cardinals get back Jack Martinez, who didn't pitch last year in the Arizona Complex League. He was selected in the 8th round of the 2025 draft out of Arizona State. So an unproven right-handed pitcher. The Cardinals have been certainly seeking swing and miss stuff. Hopefully Martinez can provide that. But at 22 years of age, you're taking a gamble here if you're Chaim Bloom, because you needed to offload a bit of that contract from Arenado to the D-backs.
Yeah, and you are somebody, Stefan, that's very, very familiar with the Arizona Diamondbacks farm system and many players in there. And this is not a guy that was even on your radar, to kind of give people an idea of just what the Cardinals were able to get as far as level of prospect for Arenado in this deal.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And especially from the Diamondbacks perspective, you look at what they have in their farm system, a younger team. Certainly most of their prospects are in high A or double A, or were in the past year. Whereas when I was there, they all were in double A or triple A at the upper affiliate levels. Third base has been a huge question mark for them ever since they traded Eugenio Suarez. You have Blaze Alexander sitting there as one of the guys that could maybe fill that role. It looks like they need someone to kind of groom, maybe Alexander, maybe a Lou James Groover, to fill that spot in 2027, should there be a season. But this is a good bridge year for the Diamondbacks, looking to see if they can maybe get some of that vintage Nolan Arenado in this next season. The Cardinals, on the other hand, well, now you have a little bit more room for Thomas Saggese to play more often, Nolan Gorman to play more often, and really get a full season look at these players. I'm just curious to see what the conversations were like between Chaim Bloom and the Diamondbacks. Mike Hazen clearly got a veteran player, an all-star caliber player, maybe not quite at this stage in his career, but you trust that maybe in the right circumstance, Arenado can turn that corner. I'm interested to see what the thought process was here for Hazen. Was it just offload Arenado at all costs to send him to a destination that would be preferable, and to get as much money back seems like the logical decision by Chaim Bloom?
Yeah, and I think that's the way we've kind of been dissecting the first few trades that we've seen this offseason with Wilson Contreras and with Sonny Gray. It's okay, how much are the Cardinals still going to pay of their contract, and how is that balancing out with the level of prospect that you're getting? And you saw with the Sonny Gray trade that they got decent prospects back for that you got a major league ready pitcher. And at the time, I think it was the number 5 prospect in there in the Diamondback or the Red Sox system for that. With Wilson Contreras, you got back again another major league ready arm for that, a guy that could eat innings for you this year. And I think, if anything, what this trade is telling me, that you are paying 75% of Nolan Arenado's contract now. You're paying 75% of that, and you're getting a guy who has never pitched in your system yet. You're getting a guy that was just drafted in the 8th round for this. That's telling me that maybe 75% still wasn't even enough. Like, the Diamondbacks still were looking at it and going, we really don't want to pay $11 million to Arenado. Like, we don't think he's worth, like, that's really just how much the legacy maybe has fallen off of Nolan Arenado these last few years with the injuries of that he's had. But you look at it, just you get the difference in these deals. And yeah, the Cardinals were and came to a point where they just were like, okay, we have to get rid of him. We have to start opening stuff up if we're going to be really serious about this rebuild. And this is it had to happen at some point, and you finally found somebody that was a willing trade partner.
Yeah, there are a lot of question marks for the Diamondbacks on the infield, especially. You look at who they have positionally. They have Geraldo Perdomo, Ketel Marte up the middle, especially with the news about Alex Bregman going to Chicago. That was a big target for the Diamondbacks, as it was reported by Bob Nightingale and several of the other insiders in baseball. It didn't end up happening. So you keep Ketel Marte. First base, still a huge question mark for Arizona. What are they going to do with that position? But you shore up the defense on the hot corner, which was a question mark last year with Eugenio Suarez. He was not known for his defensive acumen. He was known for his power. He was known for his bat. On the Cardinals side of things, this was a good decision. You needed to make that move. As it said in the comments, trading Arenado was priority number one going into not only this offseason, but last offseason. Now they've accomplished that goal. They've shed at least a little bit of that contract, and they can reallocate that money elsewhere. For the NL West, these are some teams that really need to continue to add if they want to keep up with the Dodgers. You saw a report earlier today about Brendan Donovan and Nico Hoerner and the market heating up with the San Francisco Giants. The Diamondbacks go and make a move for Arenado. There are going to still be trades made. The question is, how many Cardinals will be in different uniforms? And as of now, you've accomplished your biggest goal of trying to get Arenado off the books, at least to a degree, today on a Tuesday.
Yeah, and as of about a week ago, you're hearing reports of there's just no interest at all in Arenado. And then the last 3 days, I think, maybe 3 to 5 days, you go back to last Friday, the news of Ketel Marte staying put in Arizona, and then it just kind of seemed like, okay, Arizona, you keep him. What do we want to do from here? If we have all these pieces in place, we want to build from here, and that opens it up. Now I think all eyes now turn to the Giants and the Mariners. I think next, like you're next up with that, and it's a battle between Nico Hoerner and Brendan Donovan, right? Like who wants which one more? And is the other one a consolation prize, I guess?
It's very interesting to think about, especially with the Cubs going and getting Alex Bregman. To me, it seems like they're going to shift their focus to Matt Shaw playing second base. He played shortstop in college, so second base shouldn't be that much of an adjustment for him. But Nico Hoerner, he's been a very stable defensive and offensive player for Chicago. But Brendan Donovan has provided a little bit more, I think, on both sides of the ball. Offensively, he hits for a better average. He gets on base. He plays arguably better defense. So I am curious to see what the San Francisco Giants will do, if not the Seattle Mariners, for a guy like Donovan or for a guy like Hoerner. And make no mistake, I would envision both of those guys ending up somewhere. The Cardinals, of course, have agreed to an arbitration deal with Brendan Donovan. This is, of course, the information about what the Cardinals received for Nolan Arenado. $31 million to cover the remaining 42 of his contract, and Jack Martinez, who we talked about, the 22-year-old pitcher out of Arizona State. There are still moves to be made, but I think you can take a deep breath and say, all right, we're setting ourselves up to really get a close look at our guys on an everyday basis and be a really young team. that is going to see exactly what a guy like Nolan Gorman can do at his natural position every single day, what Thomas Saggese can do with regular reps without feeling like you have that same logjam.
Yeah, and that's you mentioned the name Thomas Saggese, and anytime that Brendan and I bring it up, or José Fermín bring up those names, like, again, Cardinal fans are going to have to understand that you will be seeing a lot of Thomas Saggese and José Fermín in 2025. This is the plan. The plan is, again, if they trade Brendan Donovan, you're going to see even more of those two than you thought you were going to see. This is the plan that's in place. It is not to be World Series contenders in 2026. Do not go out to games in 2020 expecting to see the 12th World Championship team out on the field. You are seeing the young players that you're developing. You're going to see exciting young players that are hopefully here for many years to come, but you're also going to have those pieces in place, like a Saggese, that's going to have to fill in for that. I saw one of the comments here from one of our writers on STL Sports Central, Hunter Mulholland, said that according to Fangraphs, this was before all the trades were made, that Arenado was predicted to be playing 75% of the season at third base. Second on that list was JJ Wetherholt at 10%. I'm going to disagree with that right now, because as I think JJ Wetherholt is your everyday second baseman. I think Nolan Gorman's your everyday third baseman. I think right now Nolan Gorman's not getting moved. I think Nolan Gorman's your everyday third baseman. And if Brendan Donovan's still on this team, I think he's your left fielder. That's kind of the way I put together the pieces right now. And at any point, I think we could see a trade for Donovan that really does throw that whole wrench in all of that.
And I agree with that. I think that you're going to see Lars Nootbaar doing a lot of DHing. You're going to see Thomas Saggese coming off the bench. And to your point about Saggese and Fermín, whether or not people have gripes about it is neither here nor there. What they bring to the table is right-handedness, something that this team desperately needs. They're a very left-handed team. You just go down the list right now: Gorman, Donovan, Nootbaar, Scott, Burleson. I mean, you could just keep naming names. Jimmy Crooks is another one. These are all players that bat left-handed. And yes, you're going to see majority right-handed pitchers, but when you see that lefty, it's going to be very difficult to attack. So I'm interested in seeing how they shuffle the deck and make the roster stand out from a day-to-day basis. I have full and complete trust in Ollie Marmol in making those decisions on a day-to-day basis. But I think now you have a little bit more flexibility to get those guys in there depending on the matchup.
Yeah. And I still think there's still a free agent signing out there, I feel like. So I still think that there is something that is going to occur. And again, we'll see what kind of return they possibly get for Brendan Donovan, if that were to happen. And really, I mean, this is how quickly all this happened, by the way. You and I were texting probably 30 minutes before we went live here, and the news of the day was the Jeff Passan report on how the Giants were aggressively pursuing Brendan Donovan. And it was like, all right, hey, that's what we're going to go with today. And not 10 minutes later, a trade of Nolan Arenado to the Diamondbacks was completed. So it happened really, really fast. And if you are jumping in right now on YouTube and watching, and you missed it earlier, there it is. The details up on the screen right now. If you're listening to it and not able to see the screen, a right-handed pitcher, Jack Martinez, is who is going back. He was an 8th round pick back in June by the Diamondbacks out of Arizona State. So that's it never didn't pitch anywhere in any of the minor league camps for them last year through what was it, 77 innings last year at Arizona State. So that's, again, kind of an idea of what you are getting back for this. And it's, it's just, it is what it is. You wanted to move on from Nolan Arenado. You weren't going to get back these stars in place of that. But Stefan, as I kind of mentioned and we kind of alluded to earlier, like you are very familiar with that Diamondbacks system and everybody there with that. This move right here for the Diamondbacks, we did shows before Thanksgiving. We did shows kind of projecting where Arenado could end up, why each team should trade for him. And I don't believe, I'd have to go back and look. I don't know if we did Diamondbacks. Maybe we did. Maybe it was on our list. Maybe it was one that we did like last minute, but it wasn't one of the top ones that I had in mind for a landing spot for Nolan Arenado. Is there any surprise on your end that they would go and make a move like this?
No, not even a little bit. I think they were linked to each other in the offseason, early in the offseason, especially because of the need at third base for Arizona. On the corner infield in general, I should say, they didn't have that problem solved. They traded Josh Naylor. They traded Eugenio Suarez. They got Tyler Locklear back. They don't know if he's going to be the guy every day to be the heir apparent to Christian Walker. They don't know if Pavin Smith can be that guy, or maybe they platoon them both. Who's going to play that position? Third base was a huge, huge position of need because you're going to rely on Blaze Alexander, who I personally love. I love his game and I love him as a person, but I don't know if you're going to get the same power output that you would maybe get from Arenado and his experience. You certainly won't get the same defense, as good of a defender as Blaze is. So I think that this is a good match. And again, for everybody that's looking at the comments saying the Cardinals overpaid, they paid too much, I think we need to look back at what this fan base was asking for months ago when the Cardinals wouldn't commit to a direction. Now they've committed to a direction. We are going to offload our players. We're going to draft and develop. We will make trades at the right time, but we're going to do an audit of our system and see exactly what we need, what we have, and what we want. Chaim Bloom has done everything he said he's going to do. Yeah, maybe it hasn't been the sexiest outcome with the returns of players. Yes, you've got Richard Fitz. Yes, you've gotten Dustin May. You've gotten players that can bolster your rotation. But from an offensive standpoint, there is belief in that building that they have the pieces to be competitive. That was a consistent message at winter meetings. They believe that these guys can figure it out. Whether or not that comes to fruition, I don't know. We're just going to have to wait and see. But this is what a rebuilding team does. They offload some of the players that they're spending a lot of money on, and they move forward in a different direction. And I tip my cap to Chaim Bloom for having the guts to do that.
So it looks like in the comment section here, we are getting a couple people from Arizona. So Diamondbacks fans have found the video on YouTube, and they are jumping in to comment on it here. This weirdo Cub says, Arizona fan here, no idea why they wanted Arenado. At least your team knows it's rebuilding and their direction. So that's what Brendan and Ryan on Friday, they were talking about the deal with Marte and saying that, okay, with Marte staying, this makes you a contender now for probably a wild card spot. You're not gonna, you probably aren't gonna compile as many wins as the Dodgers do in the regular season, but see what you can get out of it.
Yeah, I think if you look at that rotation, you look at what they were rolling out at the end of the season, it wasn't the same rotation that you can expect this year. Corbin Burns should be back at some point. Rodriguez pitched well in the latter half of the season. Brandon Pfaadt, of course, has been up and down, has struggled with giving up fly balls, but he's been consistent enough that you know what you get out of him. And, of course, the offense hasn't been a big concern. Geraldo Perdomo had a career year. Ketel Marte is arguably the best second baseman in baseball, but you don't have that Christian Walker. You don't have those players that you used to maybe have. Corbin Carroll continues to impress. I'm just very interested in seeing how the Diamondbacks react to this, how they continue to add, and how they line up on a nightly basis. I wouldn't be shocked, if we're being completely honest, if Arenado has a lot of success at Chase Field. The big outfield that they have there, he's maybe not a home run hitter anymore. But that ballpark plays for the fly ball. There's no question. Look at Lourdes Gurriel, guys like that have been able to have 25-plus home run seasons. But if he can play gap to gap and exploit left center field and maybe get some of that opposite field power back, you could see him being a big doubles guy for the Diamondbacks, which is all they really need him to do in that lineup.
Yeah, looking through, I'm just scrolling through more and more of the comments here, and these are ones again, Stefan. I mean, it's comments like this that we are going to have to deal with all season long with the Cardinals season that is upon us. As I'm scrolling through and I'm finding it here. There, Jojo says, maybe I'm on an island, but I'd rather keep Arenado and have a reason to go to the ballpark and see a real big league player. This is where you mentioned, like, people complaining a few months ago or wanting to know the direction a few months ago. They've made it clear day one that this was going to be all about shedding as much payroll as possible, getting rid of guys that were not going, that they knew they had a roster. They knew they had a 40-man roster that was not going to win the NL Central, was not going to compete for a World Series. Maybe you back into the third wild card spot and then just get steamrolled in the first round, but that wasn't going to be what this team's MO was going to be. So they go out and immediately trade Sonny Gray. I think the Wilson Contreras deal was a little more of a surprise than what a lot of I think of that one. I thought would have taken a little bit to get done. I didn't expect that one to happen as fast as it did, but the market around first baseman, the way it happened with Pete Alonso, allowed the Cardinals to go out and do that fairly quickly. And I don't think the Cardinals went into the offseason wanting to trade Brendan Donovan, but I think the market, again, dictates that. And I think you see the want and desire for Brendan Donovan throughout the rest of the league, and you get a bidding war together and you say, okay, no better time than right now to do this. Let's go get it done. And I think that's where you stand with this, and it's okay. We're just going to shed all of this, hope to win 70 games. And I know that's a really, really tough pill to swallow for Cardinal fans, but it's what the season's going to be.
I think the word that I keep going back to, Joe, in my mind, when I think about Chaim Bloom's tenure so far, is opportunistic. He has waited for the right moment to strike, to send players the other direction, to get players back. And I want to go back to that comment about seeing a real big league player at the ballpark. This is something that is really interesting to me, Joe, because a lot of the people weren't showing up to the ballpark at the end of the season, not necessarily because of Arenado or because of any player regardless, but they were clamoring for the idea of bringing up a guy like JJ Wetherholt. What are these other teams that have had major success over the last few seasons had? A dynamic rookie. JJ Wetherholt is the betting odds favorite to win Rookie of the Year in 2026.
Yeah.
That might be a real big leaguer. Guy like Pete Crow Armstrong, that might be a real big leaguer. I think that the fans are going to surprise themselves when they can wrap their brains around the future and the excitement of the future. I know the whole be patient ideology has worn thin in between the arches, but you have some players that are going to be exciting to watch. Now, maybe, just maybe, we can follow our friends down the road in Kansas City's lead and bring the walls in 10 feet and be a little bit more of a power hitting team. But this is going to be a squad that will have some talent, and you'll see that talent on display, and you'll have a little bit of hope for what the future is. And you'll know, okay, we need to add a piece here. We need to subtract a piece here. That's exactly what this year is going to be. And I think it's a really important thing that needed to be done for a few years now. Credit to all involved, and credit to Nolan Arenado. I think that's the one thing that has really gotten lost in this whole conversation is, yes, Arenado maybe didn't win a World Series with the Cardinals, and 2022 was one of the better years that they had as a team together with Goldschmidt. But he still came out and he played hard and played excellent defense and had a good front end of his tenure with St. Louis. It's unfortunate that it didn't go great the entirety of his time in the Show Me State, but I wish him nothing but the best as an ambassador for the Cardinals, as a fan favorite for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And this, again, it was when the move was made to bring in Nolan Arenado, it was right after you needed a bat to be in there to protect Paul Goldschmidt. You had Goldschmidt, and you go out and you bring in Arenado to kind of be that protector of it. And we saw what all of that could have looked like back in, was it 2022? That 2022 season, when you add in Albert to that mix and everything just clicked that season. We saw what that trio, what those two, with Goldie and Arenado, you saw what those two were capable of being in the middle of the lineup. And I think it's just the case. Even when you look, if you look last year at Goldschmidt's numbers with the Yankees too, it's the same thing. Father Time Father Time's undefeated in this, and you just see the years that have kind of caught up on them, and just diminished what they could have been. Stefan, I don't know if you could see who just jumped in to join us here, but Mike Claiborne now joining us as well as Claibs. We knew that this was going to happen. We knew it had to happen. Nolan Arenado to the Diamondbacks. Your initial thoughts?
Well, first of all, I'd just like to say thank you to Nolan Arenado for what he meant to this organization on and off the field. I knew him when he was in Colorado. He was a wonderful person there and consummate professional. And we're going to miss him because we don't have anybody who can pick it like him. I know he didn't swing the bat as well, but it was time. It was a time, just need change of scenery more than anything else. And you know what? He's earned that right to have a chance to have that change of scenery. So I wish him nothing but the best until he plays us. And then if he goes 0 for 4, that'd be all right. But overall, it's the right thing to do. Now, as you guys were talking about earlier, I wouldn't know Jack Martin if he was delivering the mail. Okay. I don't know anything about him. Obviously somebody saw him somewhere that feels like maybe he can contribute down the road. But, it's just, I think, another opportunity for the Cardinals to add an arm. And if it works, fine. If it doesn't, well, you know what? We got good mileage out of Arenado.
I love that take from Claibs. He's absolutely right. And again, you can talk about Arenado going 0 for 4 against the Cardinals. All we have to hope is that he doesn't perform as well against St. Louis as Eugenio Suarez did this past year. You remember sitting in that booth with my dad and me. What a weekend that was coming out of the All-Star break.
I've seen, and every team has a killer. Suarez is a Cardinal killer. I remember when Matt Holliday was traded to the Cardinals, and he used to just destroy Philadelphia. And so Nolan has done that to a lot of teams in the Western Division when he was in Colorado. So, what he does now, I hope he does go back and start wrecking things out the Western Division. But we'll only see him twice. And you know what? If we can survive a 6-game series with Nolan not killing us, I think we'll be okay because we have a lot of other games to worry about.
One of the things that we brought up early on in the show was now who plays third base. I know before the trade happened, FanGraphs said that Arenado was 75% and JJ Wetherholt was 10%. Right now, who is your predicted opening day starter at third base, Claibs?
Well, because of the date on the calendar, I haven't had a look at Nolan Gorman. I've heard things about Nolan Gorman. I think what I'm going to do is give JJ Wetherholt a shot. I've already seen what Nolan Gorman can do, and I didn't like it. So, unless he's made some significant improvements, he's going to have to earn a spot. And one of the neat things about this is that we're trying to see the Cardinals create more internal competition. Having a competition for third base, having a competition in the outfield for different spots. We may even see competition behind the plate as well. So those are the things I'm looking for. And if Wetherholt can be better than Gorman, because let's face it, we've seen Gorman for the last, 3 years now. It is what it is. I don't know if it's going to change or not. I know everybody's enamored with his power when he has it. But I think the other things that come with him are still a concern. With Wetherholt, the question will be, does he have the arm? Does he have what the makeup of a third baseman looks like in 2026? I mean, is he going to swing for power? Is he a guy who's just going to put it in play? Is he a gap hitter? I mean, there's so many things that you have to wonder about for an offensively starved ball club in the first place. So I'm going to start off and I'm going to flip a coin when spring training starts to see who gets the first start. That's great. I want to see who's going to get the last start in spring training.
Claibs, here's a question for you. And I want to go back to when Jordan Walker was having that dynamic spring training a few springs ago. There were a lot of people talking about Jordan and his success in the spring and maybe equating his torrid streak to start the spring with the lack of star caliber starting pitchers being involved in spring training because of the World Baseball Classic. How much do you have to temper the early goings of spring training with a guy like JJ Wetherholt this time around?
I think you do to a point, but because he's hit at every level, you probably give him a little bit more wiggle room compared to a Walker who really didn't get a lot of minor league experience and was coming straight out of high school, where the fastball was king and he was able to handle that. It was the breaking balls that gave him problems. So in this case with Wetherholt, having seen a little bit more up arm pitching, and what I mean by that is going through college as well, seeing some better arms than what he would see in the A-ball, I think gives him a little bit more of an advantage. But I'll go back to this. I don't know what kind of hitter he's going to be at the big league level. You know, to say, oh, Wetherholt can hit you 25 home runs, maybe 30 home runs, maybe he can. But Wetherholt may be able to hit you 295, maybe 300 at some point. And the way the game is valued now, Stefan, where you look at a guy like Luis Ariz, who's a singles hitter, and people are like, yeah, okay, fine. We want guys with slug. And if there was ever a team that was in dire need of more slug, it's the St. Louis Cardinals. So I think we have to see what the other components look like. But to your question, I think it's a great one because of the fact that when you start to ascend through an organization, the two things I'm always conscious of in spring training is how many fastballs do you see early in spring? And when you go back and you think about Walker's first spring where they decided to call him up, man, he was just seeing fastball after fastball after fastball. Now he comes up to the big leagues in that first couple of weeks, still fastballs. And then when they started to throw a little bit of this and a little of that, things changed for him, swing changed, and he never really recovered from it. So we'll have to really give this some real time and making sure they're getting at bats against quality pitching, something you touched on compared to some guy who's wearing 78 on his back.
Somebody in the comments brought this up. I don't have the exact comment, but it's wanted to ask you this. So who's the leader in the clubhouse right now? And let's assume Brendan Donovan gets traded, because right now reports are heavy that saying that the Giants are aggressively pursuing him. We know the Mariners want him too. So if Brendan Donovan's gone, who's the leader in that clubhouse now that you've gotten rid of Wilson Contreras, Nolan Arenado? Some of the other guys are gone, free agents are retired.
It's a good question. And you know who I'm anxious to ask that question to is John Jay or Daniel Descalso. Because if you recall in 2011 when they won, remember they were the Memphis Mafia. They all came up together in the minors. So there had to be some leadership on that level. On this level, you know, I think when we look at this situation, this has just got to be one where it's got to be organic. We can't get caught up in we're going to slap a C on your jersey and we're going to do this and do that. No, you know what? And you can see through the fakeness too. When guys are Mr. Rah-Rah, and you know what? Just go out and play. And we'll figure the leadership thing out. I always remember when Whitey managed, you know, they always used to ask, well, who's the captain of the team? Whitey said, I am. And, you know, if you look at that team of the 80s, they didn't really have a designated leader. Yeah, Ozzie was a really good player, and Terry Pendleton was tough, and Tommy Hurd was a really good player as well. But they kind of policed themselves. So maybe we'll see this team do something along that line until someone steps up, or maybe there's a guy somewhere who's ready to assume leadership in another organization. Got to be careful with that, because the first thing you do is when a guy comes over and says, well, this is how we used to do it over in such and such. And my question to him would be, well, how many games, how many World Series did you win? You know, so you have to be careful about designating titles to individuals who haven't either earned it or at least been in an environment where they understand what this team is in need of.
This is Card Central Instant Reaction on STL Sports Central, getting you live up to the minute reaction of the Nolan Arenado trade to the Arizona Diamondbacks. Joe Roderick, Mike Claiborne, Stefan Caray with you. We will be back to keep talking about that in just a bit.
You want a backyard paradise next summer? Talk to Merrimack Pools and Outdoors now. No surprises, great design, straight pricing, and you could be swimming by Memorial Day. Hit SplashSTL.com. Merrimack Pools and Outdoors, turning big Griswold dreams into real St. Louis backyards for 25 years.
Hey, DraftKings is the official sports betting partner of the NFL. making every playoff moment feel so much bigger, like they did this past weekend with 2 games on Saturday, 3 on Sunday, and then last night's Monday Night Football game. DraftKings has your back too with the early exit protection that was used with George Kittle this past weekend. If a player is your eligible NFL prop goes down at any point in the first half, you still get paid in cash with DraftKings early exit protection. And tonight is Tuesday night, which means it's king of the court in the NBA. You look and find who you think is going to have the most points, rebounds, and assists in the NBA. Pick that guy. Put your $5 bet on him, and when you hit the tab, you are entered into the King of the Court contest for a share of $1 million. If you haven't done so yet, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use code STL Sports. That's code STL Sports to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or call ccbg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas, wager tax pass-through may apply in Illinois. 21 plus in most states. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, call dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer.
Welcome back to Card Central 365, powered by DraftKings. The crown is yours. Claibs, we talk a lot about the depth of the organization. We talk about which players can fit where, and in many respects, we rank them. I'm curious, from your perspective, not about necessarily the players, but Chaim Bloom. Where does this move in his very brief Cardinals tenure rank amongst what he's already done this offseason?
Well, he did something that nobody else was able to do, okay? Because this has been the elephant in the room for the last couple of years. What did he get out of it? Well, we don't know. The salary, the payroll's off the books now. We can move forward. We can actually see what we have within the organization. So I think it's just it's a small piece to what the big pyramid is going to eventually look like. It was something that had to be done. As we mentioned, it's been something that should have been done 3 years ago, but for some reason they couldn't get it done. And obviously Nolan had a lot to do with that with regard to where he didn't want to go. So, I think we'll have to wait and see, because we don't know if Jack Martin can play. We don't know anything about him. So you'd like to say somewhere down the road, Jack Martin was a contributor, and we got him in the Arenado deal. And the reason why I say it in that manner, when you look back and when the Cardinals and the previous president of baseball operations made 2 deals to acquire Goldschmidt and Arenado, and you think about the guys that they gave up, Zach Gallen might have been the only guy that actually had legitimate success of all of those players that were involved in those 2 deals. And if those two organizations look back, they were doing a salary dump as well. So, when you get into salary dumping, it's really a roll of the dice if anything you get in return is ever able to help you.
It's very interesting. You look at Martinez as one of these players that came up in Arizona State. He probably had a ton of connection with the Diamondbacks. Now he's a Cardinal, and you don't know how much he's going to be able to help you. But I want to look at the market as a whole now from the Cardinals' perspective. Of course, as Joe mentioned earlier, the main topic of conversation was Nico Hoerner, Brendan Donovan, and the San Francisco Giants. It just shows how quickly these things can come together, with Arenado now being the main news. How much confidence do you have that Brendan Donovan will be traded this offseason?
Man, that's a good question. If you're moving Donovan, you're not moving him for Jack Martin. Okay. You're moving him for some people who can actually play, and you like to have at least one of them being able to play this year. I think if Nico Hoerner is actually available, which I find just mind-boggling that anybody would want to put that guy. If Nico Hoerner, I'd take that guy in a minute. I think he's one of the best players in the game. But if he is available, I think you have to wait and see where he goes before Donovan move takes place. But if you're going to move Donovan, you can't trade him for suspects. And while there are some teams who are higher on him than others, I think he could be a very important piece to your team. I don't think he's going to lead you to a championship, but he's a guy you don't have to worry about because of his versatility and just the way he plays the game. That's going to make him an attractive player. So again, we're not trading Brendan Donovan for Jack Martin. And if you can't get anything that you like for him, then guess what? He's your second baseman.
If not your left fielder, as Joe said, if J.J. Wetherholt comes up and they decide they like him at second base, do you see a problem with putting Donovan in left field?
Yeah, I do. I don't think he's a left fielder. In some ballparks you can get away with it, but I think he made himself into a pretty accomplished left fielder. But I don't think he's as effective as I think you need to look at some other guys who have a little bit more pop. Because if you're putting him in the outfield, we're looking for guys at corner positions with some power. Okay, he doesn't have that sort of power. If that's the case, I'd rather put Burley back out there. But, there's a lot of different scenarios that you have to look at. And, again, this is January. The team is going to look a lot different between now and the start of spring training, and maybe even look more different after spring training. So I think we have to just be patient and just see what the makeup looks like. But monitoring what the trade market looks like with Brendan Donovan is certainly something we have to pay attention to. And also this, if you're going to make a deal with a team, you better make sure that guys you get in return or players that have come from sound organizations of development, where we don't have to get a guy and then just say, well, wait a minute, who thought this guy was a good idea? He can't play. And there are organizations that are like that you just stay away from. So you have to make sure that if you're going to get a guy, A, you got to have the guy that can play on your roster now, and B, you better have a guy that's you're going to see hopefully in July, maybe September. I don't think you should look for anybody who's like going into AA. I think you have to have legitimate players, because while we have stockpiled or continue to try and stockpile players, you're going to need some players that can play now. And we don't have enough of them yet. So I think that's the next mission.
How many more trades would you predict we see before spring training?
Probably 3. I think
okay.
At least 3. There's some areas you still aren't solid in. I mean, we just talked about what third base looks like or what the left field looks like. I think you like to have another veteran arm somewhere in your pitching staff. I like to have a little bit more experience coming off the bench. And here's the other thing. We have to have 2 things. We need more slug and we need more speed. This is a team that it was really hard for them to manufacture runs. So, but you need guys who can put it in the gap. Home runs, rules the roost. But man, you have to have guys who can steal a base and can go from first to third. Those are on the offensive side. The defensive side, you have to have guys who can catch the ball. Now, I thought Victor Scott was really good. I thought he regressed a little bit defensively in the latter part of the season. I thought Jordan Walker made significant improvements in left field. Alec Burleson, I thought, was maybe the most improved defender we had on the ball club. Thinking about when he first got to St. Louis, his position was batter's box. They didn't even want to give him a glove at one point, but he made himself into a reasonably good left fielder. He continued to work on being a reasonably good first baseman. And now that you have him with those seasons and those games under his belt, you can expect him to get better. So when you have that working for you, you got to catch the ball. And that's one of the things the Cardinals have been able to do. In suffice of not being able to score runs, they were good defensively, and they're going to have to be really good this year because we don't know what the pitching is going to look like.
No.
Claibs, do you think that the Cardinals will be active in the trade market for the reason of they need to figure out their own team in 2026? Or is it a reactionary, sort of a knee-jerk reaction to, hey, the Cubs are making a lot of moves, the Pirates are making a lot of moves in the future? I know that this is a rebuild year, but do you think that factors into their decision-making?
No, I don't think so. I don't think you can be reactionary unless you're in it. And right now the Cardinals aren't in it if the season started tomorrow. They have some work to do. That doesn't mean they can't be competitive. But, if you start trying to match up, well, the Cubs are doing this and the Reds are doing that, you're not ready for that yet. Now, let's say if you get hot, you get out to a really good start, and you roll around, and here we are at the All-Star break, and now the question is, what do you think? Do we go all in and go out and get another bat? Do we go all in and find another arm? And by the way, you'll have the money to do it because you haven't spent any money. It really is going to be an intriguing question. So I really think it depends on what kind of start you get off to. And wouldn't it be fun if Oliver Marmol had a competent roster where he could actually get some things done with some players? But to your initial question, I don't think you can be reactionary right now. I think you have to assess what you have, and that's the other thing. We don't even know who we have. I mean, we just traded for a bunch of guys that somebody else didn't want anymore. So we have to figure out why we want them now.
I'm sure you guys are happy that they weren't breaking the news during the Cardinals caravan and winter warm-up and having to adjust for all those questions in the middle of whatever city or town that you were in. Now, I guess it gives you some time to answer some more questions about what they might do. But This is fun for me. It's exciting to not necessarily know where everybody's going to be, how all the puzzle pieces fit together. And as I said earlier, I'm really looking forward to how the team of Chaim Bloom, Daniel Descalso, Ollie Marmol, the whole staff will figure out how to make it all work in 2026.
Yeah, and you know what? I think they enjoy the challenge because, one of the things about this team, the coaching staff loves to coach, loves to teach. Unfortunately, they have been saddled by having to teach things that some of these players should have known before they got to the big leagues. Now you start from scratch. And, fundamentals are going to be stressed even more in spring training on how we do it here compared to where you did it somewhere else. And that's something that is going to be etched in stone. And I think coaches enjoy that. And it's easier from a strategy standpoint to make sure they're all on the same page. But if you see guys going through drills and you're saying to yourself, well, what are they doing that again for? Well, because we want to get it right. We want to get it right because this is the way the Cardinals would like to have it done. And with so many new instructors and people from a development standpoint involved in the organization, I think the more anxious moment is going to be when all those guys get in a room and say, all right, how do we deal with the cutoff? How do we deal with the wheel play? How do we deal with moving runners along? Things of that nature. There's so many things behind the scenes that we just don't know about and don't really pay attention to that coaches have to do. So for them to all be on the same page about how we're going to do things, I think is even more fun. And hopefully we'll be able to learn what the new Cardinal way is going to look like.
Yeah. I'm again, as you said before, if you still expect 3 more trades to be done by spring training, I was going to set that over under at 1.5 before you said that. So if that is to happen, we will be sure to come your way with instant reaction shows after each and every one of those, as we are right now. And as over 500 of you are watching live on YouTube, make sure if you are not a subscriber to the STL Sports Central YouTube page, you hit that subscribe button. You make sure those alerts and those notifications are on, and whenever we go live, you get that notification sent right to your phone. Same with Facebook as well. So that way you get all of the news as soon as it breaks. Yes.
I want to do one thing. I want to amend trade. I want to say acquisitions.
Okay.
Now there's a couple of guys I'd like to see traded. But I think acquisitions would probably be, because if spring training started tomorrow, you say, you know what, we're short. Okay. We're short in a couple of areas. So I think you're going to need 3 more acquisitions to be able to feel well armed and well offensively minded going into spring training. And I really think this spring training, obviously with the players that they're bringing in, you're going to get a long look. Every at bat, every pitch is going to count. And I don't care whether it's in the first inning or the 8th inning, somebody's watching you. I think you're going to see a lot more activity on the backfields to make sure guys get enough work in. The question is, when you have guys on the backfield, do you have enough guys on the backfield that are on that same level of competition compared to a guy who just found out, what A-ball is all about? So I think the way the structure of how this camp is going to be very unique in making sure you get the most out of people from a quality standpoint.
And you and I and many of the other media are going to have to learn a lot of these names and faces very quick too. Ali as well. Ali has his work cut out from this weekend at the winter warm up. Trying to remember all these new names of guys he's going to be meeting.
You know what? They should just hand out, hello, my name is such and such, and this is what I play. I think that's where we have to go about it. But it's, you know what? I think that's kind of fun compared to guys when you see him and this is what he is. Because I think we've gone through that enough where there's certain guys where you may like them, but this is who they are, okay? And who they are isn't going to be good enough to be better than what you need to be.
Chris Tuno is going to have the pronunciation guide handy for all these new players that Ollie's going to have to become fully aware of for winter warmup. Claibs, one of the questions that we had last year was the concept of addition by subtraction, right? You get rid of a player that may be blocking somebody else. It feels like some of the players that the Cardinals are contemplating trading at this point are not going to be players that you're happy about losing. Do you think they're over that addition by subtraction part of their offseason, or do you still think there are some players that I think be?
Yeah, listen, this team isn't good enough to be able to say, well, we have to keep this guy. Okay, if you move a guy, then that guy, no one's is sacred. So when you think about guys that are movable, and that means you already have a plan about who can replace them. You just don't make deals to make deals. But I think in this case, everybody on this roster is available to be traded if it makes your team better. And I repeat it, everyone. And I don't care about the numbers. I don't care about what the promise looks like. If you can find somebody who you think is better, then you say goodbye to that individual. This isn't the 85 Cardinals where you're not moving Ozzie or Tommy Herr. This isn't when the Cardinals in 2011, you're not moving Pujols or Yadier. We don't have that guy, okay? We don't have a face of this ball club yet. So until we do, everybody's in play as far as I'm concerned.
It's going to be a lot of fun finding out who that new face of the ball club is going to be.
Well, boys, I will see both of you guys this weekend over at the winter warm-up. Stefan, happy to announce that Mike Claiborne's tickets for his autograph signing session have sold out. So
yeah.
Well,
you didn't know I got a family reunion going on in town, so.
Hey, I think that I'll get it maybe on a napkin when he buys my lunch, as he always does. He takes such good care of me whenever I'm in town. So I'll actually, you know what? No, I'll just steal the receipt. That'll be my Mike Claiborne autograph. That'll be perfect.
Frame it.
I have several. Actually, I'll give it to my dad. My dad will frame it. It'll be his favorite thing in the world.
Well, when it comes to your dad and me, we have signed autographs on many occasions in certain restaurants and drinking establishments. So it's not like we will have it's not like writer's cramp won't be part of what we do for a weekend.
They didn't realize the jersey numbers could get that high on the signature, right? The number right above the name. Usually you see the jersey number right before the signature. Your numbers get pretty high, guys.
It's amazing what happens with a decimal point when it comes to certain bills. So we'll have fun with it for sure. But yeah, everybody come on down, get get an autograph. I'm in such a giving mood. I think I'm not going to charge anything this year.
That's nice of you.
Yeah,
and then, of course, if you are outside of the St. Louis area and watching us from anywhere in Cardinal Nation, maybe you can catch Mike Claiborne out in Springfield, Missouri on Friday, or Joplin or Rolla on Saturday. He'll be out there with the Cardinal Caravan with Ricky Horton, Victor Scott II, JJ Wetherholt, José Fermín, Leonardo Bernal, and Kyle Leahy. And Kerry Robinson also with you guys on the Caravan on Friday and Saturday. So if you're watching us in any of those towns, go to the Cardinals website and check out the details on that to see where you can meet Mike Claiborne, JJ Wetherholt, and others this weekend on the Caravan. So busy weekend for you, Claibs, as the offseason is quickly coming to an end, but still plenty of moves left to be made.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this next 4 weeks, 5 weeks. I think it's going to be more active than docile. So I'm looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to just getting into better weather and watching this thing unfold.
Stefan, I'll let you take us home then.
Yeah, can't wait. Can't wait to see Claibs in the Sunshine State. Can't wait to be in some cold weather in the next couple of days. That'll be new for me, but it's always great to be back on the show, especially with some big news. So thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to like and subscribe on the STL Sports Central YouTube page. All content provided by DraftKings. The crown is yours. For Joe Roderick, Mike Claiborne, I'm Stefan Caray. Nolan Arenado is now an Arizona Diamondback, and the Cardinals continue to move forward in their rebuild.